It's time to do it all over again, man. Week 11 is a brand new week, brand new challenge. And speaking of challenge, let's go to the G5, man. Eastern Carolina at Cincinnati. Cincinnati favored -5. Who do you got, Shoob?
Right off the bat, this one is a Friday night game too, I believe. It's really hard to buy into Cincinnati right now because Cincinnati has been playing pretty poorly. They have not looked as good, obviously, as they were last year. And even the games that they've won against some inferior competition, they've barely won those games. Obviously, a lot of us watched them lose to UCF last week, and even with UCF losing their starting quarterback, they were able to beat them. They are at home, which is an advantage. But on the other side here, you have East Carolina, who's on a little bit of an insurgence right now. East Carolina has beaten three quality teams in a row. They got that road win at BYU a couple weeks ago. It's pretty hard to take Cincinnati right now based on the trends. Am I going to do it? I think I am. I'm going to take East Carolina to win this game and beat Cincinnati outright and cover the spread. So I'm going to go with the underdog here. I've really liked what I've seen from East Carolina and Holton Haller's their quarterback. And even though I'm not usually a huge follow the trends diligently guy, I'm just going to sort of assume that the trend doesn't get bucked here and that East Carolina upsets the Bearcats on the road.
I'm not going to grab any additional synopsis, Shoob. I'm with you, ECU, on
Wow.
both. Cincinnati has been a good team in their conference this year, but of course they're a step down, which is to be expected from last year. I mean, their playoff season year. But hey, man, like you said, Eastern Carolina has been playing really well. Let's not forget, Eastern Carolina almost beat NC State back when NC State was completely healthy. And this is
Should
a
have beat
quality
NC
team,
State,
man.
really.
This is a quality team. And I don't think that this -5, look, man, if I lose on the straight up, I think I'm at least getting that spread. If Cincinnati necks this out, it's not going to be by more than a touchdown. So I feel very comfortable taking ECU here both ways.
Well, I didn't expect us both to take them, but we're on the pirate train, man. Purple and gold. How about another game? Let's move into the SEC. This is a spread that I'm honestly kind of surprised by. LSU is a 3-point favorite on the road at Arkansas. Obviously, LSU coming off that huge win against Bama. Arkansas coming off a very disappointing loss at home to Liberty. So, do we see a little bit of hangover effect here? Is it a bounce back spot for Arkansas? What's your take?
I don't think there's going to be any such hangover effect here, Shub. In fact, LSU is now in a prime position to come out of the SEC West. I think they know that, and they don't want to risk letting that go. I think LSU is going to be focused. I think they're going to come out ready for this game. I think LSU is going to win this by maybe 2 touchdowns, honestly. I think they're going to crush this spread. So I'm going LSU both.
It's
LSU
hard for
has the potential to win the West in Brian Kelly's first year, man.
Exactly. And it's hard for me to disagree with you. I'm a little surprised by the spread. You would think that maybe conservatively LSU would be like a 6 or 7 point favorite based on the models, but this kind of screams LSU. Now, I will say I am a little worried about a hangover effect. And obviously, I would expect Arkansas to have a bounce back and play better than they did against Liberty. But we talked about it earlier on this pod. If you listen to part one, Arkansas, we're towards the end of the season now. They've played this tough schedule. They are banged up. It has been a grind for them. And LSU, they now have a whole lot more to play for than they thought they did a few weeks ago. So I got to confidently pick LSU here to cover that spread. I mean, -3, can they win by more than a field goal? I think so. So give me LSU both ways.
Let's move over to the Big Ten, Shub. We've got Purdue versus Illinois, 6.5. Illinois coming off a very disappointing loss to Michigan State. Will Illinois rebound or will Purdue get the dub? What are you thinking?
Boy, so this one is a really big game for the Big Ten West because the winner of this game, by virtue of the head to head, would have a really good chance to win the Western Division, assuming they can hold on. So it's a big game. Illinois is at home, of course, coming off of a loss to Michigan State. Pretty disappointing for the Illini, but they still have everything ahead of them in terms of the Big Ten West. And Purdue has not looked that great the last few weeks. I'm going to go with the Illini here. I got to do this one for the dynasty. I think 6.5 on the spread as well. I think Illinois can cover this. I think that Illinois is still a great team. I think that they just had a bad performance against a Michigan State team that seems to be playing a little bit better recently. And I've not looked what I've seen from Purdue recently. So I'm gonna give a nod to the Illini here. I think Illinois wins this by a touchdown or more, and they bounce back at home.
Shoob, despite Purdue's struggles, I think they're a very well coached team. There's a lot at stake. I think they will come ready for this game. And there have been struggles from the Illini offense, or at least finishing drives here of recent. And that could be something that really plays into effect here. So, if anything, I think home field is definitely an advantage. I think Illinois will win. But because of all those other extraneous factors, I think Purdue is going to cover the spread. You're giving me 6. I think 3 to 4 points is kind of where I'm going to peg it.
Man, you're gonna take a team that gave up 24 points to Iowa last week.
Hey, man, someone had to do
bold
it.
Move.
Someone had to do it. They were saying the 30-mile-per-hour winds were compensating for Spencer Petras' natural accuracy. So, so that's why he was throwing so well that game. So let's just assume that those winds won't account for that this time around. Let's move over to the SEC, man. Alabama -12 versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss is one loss team. What's your take on this one? Alabama coming off a pretty disappointing loss, but there is still the potential to be coming out of the West. I know LSU's got all the advantages right now, but Alabama's still alive. All things considered, do you think they bounce back?
It would take a lot for them to win the West. They need a lot of LSU losses here, but
And they need 2.
right. Oh man, my confidence in Alabama has gone down a lot after this past game. I was very high on them going into the season. I kind of figured after that early season struggle against Texas that they would sort of figure it out, because that's what a lot of good teams do, is that they play their best ball towards the end of the year right around now. And Alabama just really hasn't done that. It doesn't seem like this team is as well coached. The play calling isn't as sharp as it was in years past when they had offensive coordinators like Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin. And it just hasn't been it for Alabama. So they are a 12-point favorite. How many times this year have we said, okay, Alabama struggled against Texas, they're going to bounce back. Okay, Alabama struggled against A&M. Okay, Saban's going to whip them in the shape, they're going to bounce back. Oh, LSU lost to Tennessee. Oh, all right, they're going to win out the rest of the year. Alabama's going to bounce back. Well, they haven't really been bouncing back. Mm-hmm. And you got Ole Miss here and Lane Kiffin, man. I'm going to finally take my foot off of the Alabama gas pedal for the first time this season. Do I think they're going to lose this game? No, I'm not going to go that far. But in terms of this spread, I'm going to take my foot off of the Bama gas pedal. I'm going to say that Lane Kiffin and the Rebs, even though I don't think Ole Miss is as good as their number 11 ranking suggests, I think that the Rebels will cover this spread and Alabama wins.
I'm 100% with you, Shoob. Same exact pick. And my reason is, Alabama has been in a little bit of a struggle situation. Ole Miss, they're a very good offensive team. They can take advantage of you through the air. They can take advantage of you on the ground. Alabama's defense has not been as solid as it has been in past years. And another thing about Alabama, why their offense isn't as dominant as we're accustomed to seeing, is they don't have a whole variety of first-round wide receivers like they normally do. They're actually very average wide receivers, so to speak, as of right now. There's no true standouts over there that really just jump off the page and go, wow, that dude's talented. I mean, we're so accustomed to seeing Alabama have 2, 3 like first-round pick wide receivers on their roster at any given time. It's where, they were just a complete powerhouse, but Alabama doesn't have that luxury this year, man. And so I think that's kind of played against them, and that's why you see them in some of these close games. And so those deficiencies, I think, -12. Look, man, Alabama, we'll see how well coached they are, given right now. Saban is one of the best coaches, if not the best coach of all time. He is the best coach of all time. I redact the doubt. I don't know, man. They are probably eliminated from the West, eliminated from the SEC Championship, eliminated from the College Football Playoff. Are they on quit alert? I don't know about quit alert, but I'll tell you what, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss want this game. They 100% want this game, and so I'm doing what you did, man. I'm going to take Alabama to win, but Ole Miss is going to cover this. I think it'll be a close game.
All right, so we're in agreement here. I would love to see Ole Miss finally win this rivalry. I'd love to see Lane Kiffin get a win against Nick Saban. That'd be really cool, especially for Lane Kiffin. And with his name floating around in the coaching carousel these days, that would make things very interesting if Ole Miss were to win this game. But we shall see. So we both like it to be relatively close. How about a game in the Big Ten East? Maryland 6-3 versus Penn State 7-2. these two teams fighting for positioning in the Big Ten. Maryland hasn't really been playing that well as of late. Talia Tagovailoa returned from injury last week and didn't play so well against Wisconsin. A lot of people think maybe Talia is playing through an injury right now, potentially. I guess we'll see. And then you have Penn State on the other hand. They're out of the picture in the Big Ten, but they're still a good team. They're ranked. What's your take here?
Maryland's good offense when Tagovailoa is healthy, man. And that's part of the reason why we were so confident in their over when we did win totals. It was one of our best bets, if I recall.
It's hit depending if you got the line at 5.5 or 6. If you got it at 6, it's a push, but it's probably going to hit still. They got Rutgers still.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, Penn State is a quality team, good defense. I mean, I really like Joey Porter on the defensive side. They've got a good secondary. Sean Clifford has played pretty solid this season. I would say he's played great, but he has played solid football. Definitely not too shabby. Dude, Penn State's got a lot of talent. And then, as you said, Maryland, we don't know if Tagovailoa is hobbled. There are some issues there. And then, of course, Maryland doesn't have the best defense. They're one of those teams that's really strong on one side of the ball, and that one side just doesn't happen to be defense. So with that being said, Penn State at -10, Penn State home game. I like the Nittany Lions by about 2 scores. I'm going Penn State both.
I'm in agreement with you, man. It's kind of hard to trust Maryland right now, and Penn State's just the better team. They got more talent. Can't really sort of put your stock in Tagovailoa playing well and healthy right now, unfortunately. If he was, I think it would make this spread pick very interesting. But for those reasons, I'm with you. Penn State both ways. I think they can win this game by 2 scores.
All right, man. Let's move over to a game with crazy conference implications, man. UCF versus Tulane. -2 in favor of the Green Wave. What is your takeaway for this game?
This is a very interesting game. Obviously, this could be a preview of the American Conference Championship game, depending on how it plays out. UCF has 1 loss in conference play. Tulane is undefeated in conference play. Tulane is 7-1 on the season. So, with that being said, it is at Tulane. That stadium is going to be packed, I would assume, with more fans, more Green Wave faithful than it normally is. I think it'll be an interesting home field environment for the Green Wave. But you have UCF. You have a team that is coming off a big win against Cincinnati. Can they pull it together 2 weeks in a row and win this game? It's pretty big. Both of them are ranked. Listen, when John Reese Plumlee got hurt against Cincinnati, a lot of people thought, oh, that might be the end. But then Mikey Keene, the backup quarterback for UCF, he played all of last year and he was decent. He was a decent quarterback for UCF last year, and he's a very solid backup quarterback. So regardless if Plumlee comes back or not, I think Keene probably is a little bit better, a little bit more accurate of a passer. And then you have Plumlee, who is very effective on the ground. I just love the quarterback options that UCF has. And I think UCF should be the one that's favored here in this game. I'm going with the Knights to win this game. Now, would I be shocked if Tulane wins? Of course not. I think it'll be close. But I'm going to take UCF here to win and by default cover the spread.
Shoot, Tulane is so well coached. The more I watch Tulane, the more and more I think that their win against Kansas State in Manhattan was not a fluke. I think they're a pretty solid team, man, and I'm taking Tulane to win this game and cover that spread.
Wow, she's going with the Green Wave. I love it.
Green Wave, man. I'm riding the wave.
It's our first complete disagreement so far on these picks. Hey, that would be a heck of a win for Tulane, man. I don't remember the last time that Tulane had multiple ranked wins in a season, because they already beat Kansas State. And if they beat UCF, that would be their second ranked win on the year. I mean, if Tulane wins this game, they'd have to jump probably into the top 15 of the playoff rankings, right? It would be huge for them.
Maybe, man. You know what's crazy is Tulane could have been in the SEC if some things went their way a long time ago. But
back in the 80s, yep.
Yeah, that's honestly, we should make a video about that. That could be something worth talking about.
That was their own fault, honestly.
It was their own fault, but just to think, Tulane could have been in the SEC right now.
All right, let's move on here. Let's go into the Pac-12. Pac-12, in a few weeks here, these last 3 weeks of the season, the Pac-12 is going to have some bangers. A lot of these teams towards the top of the conference are going to be playing one another. How about Washington and Oregon? Washington, welcome back to the top 25. They are very quietly 7-2 after they had a little rough spot towards the beginning of the year when we were really praising them. They seem to have rebounded very well. They got a big win against Oregon State last week. And now they go on the road to face Oregon, a team that has been on a roll. The Ducks have been beating everyone to death recently, and Oregon is a 13.5 point favorite. It's an interesting spread there. What's your take?
Man, Bo Nix has had a complete rebirth in Oregon, man. I mean, he's being talked about as a potential Heisman finalist. The man that we knew in Auburn, who was very inconsistent, played well against bad competition, but couldn't really play all that consistent against good competition. That man has changed. He's finding a great system over there. I think Oregon's had a lot of success with Bo Nix, and ultimately, man, they've improved so much since they got shellacked by Georgia early season, and they're at home. It's hard for me to go against them. Now I know Washington has a really good offense, but here's the thing, man. I think Oregon's that much better. I think Oregon wins and covers at 13 and a half.
So I gave this a little bit of thought. I was considering taking Washington on the spread here at 13.5, but I don't think that Washington's going to win this game. I think Oregon's offense has just too much firepower. I think just there's going to be a lot of points just in general in this game. These are two very good offenses and not the greatest of defenses. And Michael Penix kind of had a little bit of rough spot towards the beginning of the year, as I just said. But listen, Oregon's next 3 games on the schedule, they have to play Washington, they go at Utah, and then they got Oregon State. Do I think they go 3-0 in that stretch? Honestly, maybe not. I could see Oregon losing one of those games, but they're not going to lose to Washington here. I think Oregon will win. And that 13.5, give me Oregon to cover that spread. Not very confident in that one. I think it'll be relatively competitive, but I think Oregon covers that spread. Maybe they win by like 17 to 20 points, perhaps. That's what I'm gonna roll with.
Well, let's move over to the Big 12, man. This is another game with conference championship implications for people trying to chase up the back end here. We've got Kansas State and Baylor. Baylor favored by -2.5, and they are at home versus K-State. What is your takeaway, Shoob?
This one might be the toughest game to pick outright of any of the games because this one is so coin flippy to me. You have Kansas State coming off a heartbreaking loss to Texas last week. They're still very much in the Big 12 title race. And then you have Baylor, who's now put together a little bit of a winning streak and has seemed to be playing their best ball as of late. So you got Baylor at home. They're a 2.5 point favorite. It seems like all of these Big 12 spreads, there's always a game where there's a 2.5 point favorite and we're picking one of them. And it's just so coin flippy. It's hard to get right most of the time. This is very tough for me, man. This game, you can't hedge according to our own rules because the spread is inside 3 points. So can't do any of that. You know what, man? I'm going to stick with my early season guns here, and I am going to trust Kansas State to get this dub on the road. Now, am I confident in this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Could obviously see Baylor winning this game, but I'm going to put my faith in the Wildcats here. So I'm curious to see what you have to say about this one.
I'm in complete agreement as far as this being a coin flip, Shoob. 100%. Baylor's really hitting their stride right now. Kansas State has hit some bumps in the road, but nonetheless, man, Kansas State still played very competitive against Texas, who, I mean, just by FPI and all that, they have a really, really talented roster, and Kansas State has done well to compete. A very well-coached team, man. They're starting to get healthy again. I think that plays into Kansas State's benefit. But I don't know what it is about late season Baylor, man. Late season Baylor's been really putting it together the last couple of years. I will say this. I think Baylor may have a hard time with Kansas State's defense. I still think they can put up a good amount of points. I still think Baylor will put up maybe 31, 20, 27, 31 points. But I think Kansas State's going to put up more, man. And I'm going to go with Kansas State to win this game. But again, if Baylor wins this game, I would not be shocked, man. I really wouldn't.
That kind of worries me now that we've both taken Kansas State.
The thing is, man, I picked KSU mostly because I really want them to win, man. And so since this is a coin flippy game and I could see it going like either direction, I'm just going to pick the team that I want to see win. So I'm going with KSU, man, because I really, honestly, like I love that program. I think they're so undervalued. They always do less, or they always do more with the less. And I just have so much admiration for what they've done over there. Kleiman, great coach. I mean, yeah, and I want to see them get something out of it. So let's go Kansas State.
Maybe a little bit of value there, perhaps on the plus 2.5 points there. So getting a little bit of points in return on the spread at least. But we'll see. I think the viewers understand we're not confident in this one at all. So let's move on here. Let's stick in the Big 12. Yet again, another big game, TCU versus Texas. TCU, of course, doesn't have a conference loss. Texas, one of those two lost conference teams that are clumped in there towards the top, trying to stay alive, trying to get to Arlington. Texas is favored by 7 points. Maybe a lot of people are kind of surprised by the spread. If you've been paying attention to the power ratings, it's not really that surprising. Another interesting game. I think a lot of people probably have different opinions on this one. What's your spiel here?
Let's just go with typical Texas, the typical status quo for Texas football this season, Shoob. They are going to start early. It's a night game. They're at home. Atmosphere is going to be electric. They are going to start this game amped up, and they're going to get off to a hot start. They're going to get off to a hot start. They're going to get up on TCU by 2 or 3 scores early. And then what's going to happen? Halftime. Halftime's going to come. TCU is going to crawl back into this game, and it's going to come down to the end. But I think Texas will have enough firepower to finish it because TCU has been on the fortunate end of a lot of one-possession games, Shoob. And I think that ends against Texas. I do think it will be a one-possession game, and so I will take TCU to cover. But I think Texas will start out strong, and we may be thinking this is going to be a blowout early, just like a lot of Texas games, and then TCU will claw back into it and make it a game late.
So sort of a repeat of the Kansas State game that they played last week.
I mean, Texas has had this going on with them this whole time, man. This happened with Texas Tech. This happened with Oklahoma State, except Oklahoma State was able to take that win. And then really they should have beat Tech aside from a fumble in overtime. But it's just they let teams hang around, man, even when they punch them in the mouth. So, yeah, Texas just until they show me otherwise, I cannot pick Texas to do anything else.
Well, if you look at the trends going into this game, they sort of point you in a specific direction here. So last week, obviously, we talked about how Texas had a 5-game win streak against Kansas State. Now they have a 6-game win streak against Kansas State. Texas kind of owns Kansas State for some reason. TCU, on the other hand, they've won 7 out of their last 10 games against Texas. They've had more success against Texas than Oklahoma has in the last decade. So TCU's kind of had the horns numbered here. Also, as you just mentioned, Texas, what have they been known for doing this year? Getting
Choking.
off to great starts, but then sort of blowing second half leads. TCU, what have they been known for doing this year?
The exact opposite, man.
Half.
Coming back in the second half, yeah.
Right. So the trends sort of point you to say here, maybe Texas is ahead at halftime, but then TCU has a strong second half and maybe wins the game. I'm with you. I think TCU, they deserve to be where they're ranked right now.
I thought you were going to go with TCU, man.
No, I think they completely deserve to be where they are ranked right now at number 4. However, I do not think they will go undefeated to finish the season. They are due for a loss, and I think this will be one of them. So I think Texas wins in a close game. I think this will be a very good game, and I think it'll come down to perhaps the final play. So I think Texas wins, but TCU covers, so I'm tailing you here.
This is a huge game for Texas as far as their chances getting to Arlington. So if TCU beats them here, it's going to be a slap in the face for Texas. Off to our last game, but certainly not the least. We like to pick Wake Forest, man. I've noticed that. We like to pick Wake Forest seemingly every week here. North Carolina versus Wake Forest, -3.5 in favor of the Deeks. Who you got, Shoob?
So we've been burned the last couple of weeks by taking Wake Forest, and we've been pretty confident in taking Wake Forest. And then you have North Carolina, who's 8-1 now. North Carolina has been playing extremely well. I feel like if we finally decide to not take Wake Forest, this is going to be the week that Wake Forest wins. That's just kind of my gut feeling here, is that no matter what we do, Wake Forest is going to do the opposite of what they say we will do, or what we say they will do. So it's kind of begging me here to take North Carolina because of the spread. I don't know about you, but this was also a little bit of a surprising spread to see Wake Forest favored by 3.5.
I agree with that.
But if you look at what's happened to Wake Forest the last couple of weeks, like Sam Hartman has just been turning the ball over. And yes, he's been known to do that in years past, but over the course of the season, he usually plays really well. North Carolina's defense is not very good. I don't think Sam Hartman is going to be turning the ball over left and right like he has been the last couple of weeks. I hate to do this because Wake Forest has burned me the last couple of weeks, but I'm going to take Wake Forest to win this game. And I'm not going to lie here. I really do think North Carolina could cover this spread, and I don't want to be the guy that hedges here, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to say Wake Forest wins by 4 points or more. So I'm not going to hedge.
Watch,
But
that'll be the exact right decision. It's going to be a 3-point game.
it probably will be now because I just don't feel comfortable doing whatever we're doing with Wake Forest this week. I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors by even having this game on the slate. But this is what we do. We don't make it easy on ourselves here on the Xan Shoob podcast. So, yeah.
Well, you know what, Shoob? I'll make sure that we guarantee that this trend ends. I'm taking UNC, baby. I'm investing in Drake May, and no matter what, this Wake Forest trend is going to end for one of us.
Well, if Wake Forest loses again and burns me for the third week in a row, then so be it, man. But could totally see UNC winning, man. Drake May is so good. Whatever the total is on this game, it's probably up in the 70s, but give me the over. There's going to be a ton of scoring in this game.
Oh, for sure, man.
Mountaineer Nation, let's ride. Mountaineer Nation, let's ride. Mountaineer Nation, let's ride.